Hi Zoe, thank you so much for joining me this morning. So Zoe, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone and tell everyone why you're going to come and talk to us today?
Yeah, hi, so my name's Zoe. I live in Kent, South East England, and I am a mum to 10-year-old twins who are, they're 10 now, but they were born extremely premature. At 23 weeks gestation, they're two surviving twins from triplets, actually. And we have self-referred to the Feeding Trust due to there being no service whatsoever in the area that we live in. So they had feeding tubes, pegs inserted in their abdomen when they were between 6 months to maybe a year. Obviously, it's quite a long time ago now. We've had them for forever. And there's never been any support or any kind of intervention around weaning them off the feeding tubes. So kind of 10 years later, we are still now where we are at when they were babies with regards to their developmental skills around eating. And it's been a very long, painful journey. And yeah, I mean, obviously we're thinking about secondary schools next year for the children, and you know, they're still eating blended food. So it's kind of come to a now or never really kind of situation. I mean, we've been waiting for our local children's disabled clinic, NHS organisation, to look at our case and potentially refer for an independent funding review. But unfortunately, nobody even kind of looked at it. It was sat there for 2 years, and I'm constantly on the phone trying to speak to the relevant people and not getting nowhere. And obviously time is ticking. And yeah, so I now find myself here with the Feeding Trust, who actually are the only organisation in the country that I've been able to find that can help me, that understand the needs of the children, understand the difficulties in learning to eat and not being able to eat and being tube fed. So it's a long time coming.
So Zoe, what support have you received locally for your children's paediatric feeding difficulties?
Well, obviously the children have been under our local children's centre, disabled children's centre, for their feeding issues, among other things, since birth, so for 10 years. So all of the professionals locally are aware of their difficulties, they're aware of the children. But when it comes to feeding and eating and learning to eat and the skills to eat, absolutely no, there's no service. So I even have a letter here actually from my local NHS trust, and just kind of addresses the difficulties identified on the referral do not meet our service criteria, as we have no locally commissioned service for children or young people with restricted eating. Your child has been supported by a private service for his restricted eating, and we would recommend yourselves or school to follow their advice. Which sums it up really. I mean, obviously the Feeding Trust is a charity. So, you know, it kind of is there in black and white.
Yeah, do you think restricted eating, do you think they understand both of the children's difficulties? Because restricted eating doesn't seem to kind of adequately describe the complexity of the difficulties they've both got with learning to eat. Do you see it as just restricted eating?
No, there's obviously so many different elements around their difficulties with eating. It's learning to eat, it's learning the skills, the oral motor skills, the coordination, the chewing, all of that sort of stuff. It's not restricted eating in the sense that they don't want to eat, because they do. My daughter is desperate to be able to eat all of the same things that her friends do in school. And she's trying really, really hard with the help of the Feeding Trust. We are making significant progress. But obviously for my son, it's a little bit different. But no, it's not just restricted eating. There's so many factors around the condition. So yeah, it just feels to me like I'm being completely fobbed off, really, to be honest.
So how did you find the Feeding Trust, and how's that come about?
So I was obviously doing my own research, whilst kind of being aware that there wasn't really any support locally, because, you know, it was almost like they put the tubes in, off you go, see you later, and then there was no kind of follow-up to try and wean them off of the tubes, to try and support us in trying to get them to learn to eat, because when they were kind of going through that natural weaning time, they had complete aversion. They would, you know, and I'm talking about as like 6-year-old, 8-year-old babies to 1-year-old babies, they just wouldn't let the spoon anywhere near them. So yeah, so we kind of dealt with that, and it was always the hope, oh, one day they'll learn to eat, one day we'll be able to get some support. But you're almost kind of firefighting every day, you know, tube feeding, appointments, disappointment. And I think as they're getting older, obviously it's like, well, where is the support? Why isn't there any intervention? You know, this is crazy. There's like physio appointments for mobility skills, there's speech and language appointments for communication and all of the rest, but for the learning to eat and the feeding, nothing. And that's actually been our biggest challenge, as a result of their prematurity. That's been our biggest challenge, is the eating, because it's just so disabling, yeah, for the whole family. So yeah, did my own research, found the Feeding Trust, which is obviously a charity that I understand are receiving referrals from children, families all over the country, because as I'm aware, it's not just in the area that I live, although I think it's typically bad here, but from what I've read, is it's a nationwide thing. So yeah, so I brought the children a few years ago for an initial assessment, who diagnosed them with a pediatric feeding disorder. So that was almost like somebody turning the lights on, like, oh my God, you know, this is a real thing. This is what we're experiencing. You know, getting, obviously coming to the appointments and having the assessment, the initial assessment was, yeah, it was kind of, you know, these people understand, these people can help us when all hope was lost. There was like, where do I go? I mean, the only other clinic that we sort of found was something in Austria, which, you know, was really, really expensive. So yeah.
Wow, what a journey! What a journey! So, what would you like to see? You know, Zoe, if I had a magic wand, what needs to happen? What needs to change?
Well, the NHS need to be aware of this as a medical condition. You know, there should be NICE guidelines. There should be a treatment protocol. There should be something available. I mean, obviously, my children were born extremely premature. They spend millions of pounds saving babies in the NICU, and like I just said, there's all of the services to follow them up with their development when they're discharged from the hospital, apart from the situation and difficulties with eating. It's like the missing link. And again, for us, for my children, it's the biggest difficulty that we've experienced as a result of their prematurity. It's you know, the biggest struggle, and it's an everyday struggle. It's 3 times a day struggle. It's every time you need a drink. It's every time you need a snack. It's life limiting in the fact that you can't go as a family to a restaurant and eat in a restaurant as a family. You can't eat together around the table. There's all the social implications around not being able to eat together, or the children going to parties, or, you know, social events with friends, even such like things in school where you have movie nights and popcorn, and it's all of those things that you just take for granted that have an impact. And it's really isolating as well. It can be, you can feel it's, you know, because there's no one there that can help. No one, you know, no one seems to understand. Or
That's such a powerful message, Zoe, honestly. And yeah, it's really difficult to hear, and because I know that you're not alone with that, and I know that so many of our families describe a really, really similar story and a really similar experience. And although our families come from very, very different backgrounds, and we have, you know, we have children that are tube fed, we have children that aren't tube fed, and that, you know, appear to eat lots, but really, really struggle with their eating still. And that impact that you're describing on just family life and that participation and socially and emotionally, I think often that's the one thing that that people don't really understand and don't really realise. And I think you've articulated that really, really clearly. Thank you.
Welcome.
Oh. Is there anything else you'd like to share with anyone who might be listening, about you or the children or your experiences, or any advice?
No, I just think for the decision makers within your local care trusts, your local NHS care trusts, there needs to be some movement with this. There needs to be some meetings. There needs to be some people talking, because yeah, from what I've been kind of reading and hearing and listening, that, you know, it's not an isolated case, and actually there's there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of children, I guess, but obviously to different extremes. But yeah, having 2 tube-fed children for 10 years takes its toll. So if there's any other families out there, just kind of, yeah, hang on in there and be strong and reach out.
Thank you, Zoe. That has been amazing. And I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Okay.